How long does an investigation take? A month? 2? What about 6? With no statements, no update, and no resolution. While Nijisanji claimed they were investigating, 2 of their talents were pulled from streaming. Quietly, no explanation, no accountability, just silence. First, it started with a leak, a video showing disturbing messages, allegedly, from Aster Acadia. Then came a vague statement about a third-party investigation. And now, a livestream that pulled the curtain back on everything. This isn't just one mistake. This is systemic, and it might be the biggest corporate cover-up VTubing has ever seen. Let's go back to December 2024. Out of nowhere, creators False ID and Salvi the Squirrel dropped videos, both featuring leaked DMs from a private conversation between a liver we now know is Twisty and one of her fans. These DMs had actually been circulating quietly on anonymous forum boards a month prior, but they only really gained traction once creators began amplifying them to a broader audience. And those leaks raised serious concerns. The messages detailed alleged sexual harassment by a fellow coworker, Aster Acadia, and Twisty described how he told her invasive, uncomfortable things like wanting to fly her out to Japan and how he had allegedly sex-pested another one of her friends. But the worst part, she said she went to management with these concerns and they wouldn't even speak to him. It made her consider graduating, but her manager convinced her to stay. And shortly after, she tweeted that she hated Aster. Additionally, she was venting to a friend, claiming they were told to quit their jobs once hired by Nijisanji. She had to delete all her old accounts and Discord servers, and yet, she hadn't made any money in 9 months because of company delays. When she finally received her first paycheck, 90% of it was taken to pay off her required assets. She quit her job, deleted her past, gave the company everything, and got paid in silence. Her reward for loyalty was debt. She was heavily encouraged to spend money on her debut, and by the time she got her first check, she was $10,000 in debt and couldn't afford to leave, even if she wanted to. Inside the leaks were conversations pointing directly at Aster Acadia, raising concerns of inappropriate behavior, manipulation, emotional pressure, all allegedly directed at Twisty and her friend mentioned in the DM exchange. But here's the twist. The messages weren't recent. They were taken from September, just a few months after Twisty's debut in May. And already she was talking about wanting out of the company? Suddenly, questions starting to pile up. If these messages existed since September, why was Aster still streaming? Why was nothing done? Then Nijisanji made their move. They posted a tweet announcing a third-party investigation. However, this investigation would focus on 2 things. 1, the issues of sexual harassment, and 2, the unauthorized information leakage to outside parties. This sent shockwaves through the fandom, with many believing the company would punish both the alleged perpetrator, Aster, and Twisty for being the whistleblower on this. The statement was brief, didn't mention any names, and didn't acknowledge everything. Just a cold, sterile message, as if nothing human was ever involved. And since then, absolute silence from Nijisanji. Meanwhile, an Aster Acadia cooking stream that was originally supposed to go live on December 5, just 3 days before the Nijisanji investigation announcement, was delayed, and it kept being pushed back over and over again. First to February 28th, then to March 31st, then again to April 1st, and then to June 1st, a whole 6 months since the original date. And now, it's currently set to July 24th, an entire 7 months after the investigation begun. What was he cooking anyway? Where was he getting those ingredients? 7 months, delays, and radio silence from this company. Meanwhile, there was no sign of Twisty, no streams, and everything pointed to the obvious. Both she and Aster had been put on indefinite hiatus. 2 months after the investigation supposedly begun, Twisty tweeted from her alt account that she couldn't get a reply from her job. Waiting for a reply from my job feels like watching paint dry, except the paint is my sanity. It feels like even quitting isn't an option when they won't acknowledge my existence. They don't deserve anyone or anything, speaking realistically. While fans were left guessing, while accusations quietly spread, and while the silence got louder, both talents remained completely off the grid. suspended without ever being called suspended. Slowly, Nijisanji drifted away from controversy. They debuted a new wave, which found decent success. Their feed filled up with announcements, events, and 3D reveals. And slowly but surely, everyone forgot about the investigation. Everyone stopped asking questions or even talking about it. Then came Twisty's birthday. January 2nd, she posted a birthday tweet and is allowed to stream for a bit and even promote her merch. Everybody thought she would be back. However, during that stream she had to clarify she was indeed still on hiatus. Yet, her company still promoted her birthday merch. But 3 months later, Nijisanji also announces Denof's first anniversary merch, including Twisty's merch yet again. But Twisty is still nowhere to be seen. The fans get frustrated. It's been a full year since Denof debuted, but Twisty's been gone for almost 6 months out of that entire year, and Nijisanji remained completely silent. And then on May 19th, a new outfit for Twisty, one that hadn't been revealed yet, suddenly leaked on 4chan. Nobody knew where it came from. At the time, fans believe Twisty herself had leaked it out of frustration to remind people she still existed. After all, this wouldn't be the first Twisty leak we've seen. Some even joked about her leaking her Genmate's outfit next, like it was a form of protest. But what happened next was even stranger. She attempted to go live using the new outfit, but the stream was taken down almost immediately. No warnings, no statement, just erased. Soon after, Nijisanji announced the Denof first anniversary stream, and Twisty returned, but only briefly. She sat there having to pretend everything was alright, smiling, laughing next to Genmates she hadn't been allowed to stream with for half a year. Almost as if they only had brought her back as a symbolic gesture. And then, nothing. That is until the internet absolutely erupted. A new anonymous YouTube account appeared and uploaded an unfiltered audio recording of what sounded like a Discord call featuring none other than Twisty Amonozako herself. And the title? Twisty Amonozako, racist, sexist, transphobic, etc. This wasn't vague. It was a real voice recording captured from a private call amongst friends. It was her, clear as day, speaking freely, emotionally, and brutally. The people in the call were Twisty, an indie VTuber and longtime friend of hers, Kyures Shinua, and a fan named Drinos. And the conversation quickly turned from casual to vile. Twisty began ranting about a fan named Epic, who is Indian, and what she said next was outright racist.
Oh my god.
You can tell who he is because the stench of brown will just be all over the place. It'll just smell like fucking curry and you'll know it's him. Well, talking to an Indian sounds pretty terrifying.
Okay.
Well, I hate Epic and I hate his kind, so...
Cause he looks like...
I think he's a and an Indian.
I cannot wait to meet him tomorrow.
She then told Shinoa to drop him because he wasn't even sending her money.
Just,
Who doesn't even send you money, so you should drop him.
Next, she shifts into a rant about her company, Nijisanji.
You should get her free tickets as a birthday present.
I don't even think I can get myself tickets.
Why not?
Because my company hates me?
From there, she attacks another VTuber from Brave Group, mocking them for having trans rights in their bio and saying they were bad.
Wife, the new fucking Brave Group wave is so bad. I'm actually like shocked. I don't know how the fuck they got in, because genuinely, it's like the worst I've ever seen. Like the one girl, she literally, I need to send you her videos. I'm not even being mean, wife. Like, I'm genuinely like shocked and kind of pissed off. I don't even get a fucking call back, and this girl, who literally the worst I've ever seen. I'm not kidding. Like, it's bad.
Wait,
she has like
about?
trans rights in her Twitter bio, which I feel like should be a red flag for any VTuber company if you're talking about that stuff publicly.
Wait.
And she doesn't really stream, but she uploaded some YouTube videos, and there's really terrible covers.
I don't know.
She's for the new wave that's gonna debut soon.
I don't know, maybe they saw something in them.
I don't know what the fuck they would see in her. Like, they must be blind.
Well, I don't know, it's objective, I guess.
No, like, objectively, it's really bad, wife. Like, I will send you it and you'll understand. Like, it is just very bad.
How about she is like cute in her own way?
She's not cute in her own way, wife. I'm not kidding. Like, I could not get through this. Like, it's really bad. Like, it's shocked. I cannot believe that she was hired. Like, not even like just being mean because I'm transphobic.
No,
like,
part of it's that.
no, it's not. You watched the video.
This part made her come across as particularly petty and jealous. She then proceeds to flame her own model, says she's underappreciated.
It's literally only because their audience are all fucking Twitter and they don't want to piss them off, which is fucking weird because none of those people watch me anyways. So why should I care about like them being pissed off? Like, it's so stupid.
Why should they care about you being pissed off?
Then why'd they hire me?
For fun.
Like, maybe they could have looked into the future and like realized that the girl who talked about wanting to be a lolly wanted to be a lolly. I don't know. And that just kind of seems weird to me.
I feel like it's pretty obvious that they knew that based on what they were talking to you about.
Okay, no, it's because they want
they
to
just-
hire you, right? But then they're like, okay,
They just
well,
fucking
we
lied to me
can't
pretty
do
much.
it.
They literally just lied to me.
No, it's because they wanted to hire you.
Yeah, so they lied.
Okay, well, it's fine. You can get a lolly model next time.
They're never gonna give me a fucking lolly model. Like, it makes me so mad. And everybody wonders why I don't want to stream. Like, my fans are fucking retarded, and they're upset that I spam collabs all day. Have you ever considered it's because none of you like send me any money at all? Like, it's just crazy to me that they don't understand like the connection. And I mean, I can't blame them because they're all like underage kids and that's Nijisanji's fan base, but why do you want to pander to those people? Give us ugly fucking models that they pay nothing for, take all of our income, like...
And spirals into a dark misandrist rant.
Yeah, men are fucking mentally ill and I think they should all die, honestly.
It was like watching someone tear every bridge down in real time. What an insane crash out. But the leaks weren't just controversial. They were strategically timed, surgically edited, and dropped with one purpose: to destroy her credibility. Because in the months leading up to that stream, Twisty had been completely silent, and then this recording dropped. It was not a full call, there was no context, just the worst moments. That's what makes the whole thing feel intentional. This recording plunged the internet into a frenzy, and naturally, every corner of the internet had a different take on it. There was, of course, the immediate backlash, especially over the racist slurs and the comments directed at the Indian fan. People also heavily criticized the way she insulted other creators, her own company, and even the fans who had supported her. Then came the transphobic remarks, and, as if that weren't enough, the now infamous line, "All men should die." Others pointed out that her rant about Nijisanji echoed things she had already said months ago in the original leaked DMs. Some people were outraged, but others were more disgusted by the fact that a private conversation meant to stay between friends was suddenly public for the internet to dissect. And some even questioned whether the clip was fake, because even if the voice was real, the way the call was presented sparked a new kind of debate. People noticed the audio felt choppy, like parts had been spliced. It was clear that only the worst parts had been cut together, likely to make her look as unhinged as possible. There was also a noticeable audio glitch between when she said "I'm" and the word transphobic. Was this two separate sentences spliced together, or just the result of a poorly configured voice gate on her mic? Still, even with context, some of the things she said were brutal, vile, unfiltered, ugly, and absolutely unbecoming of a corpo VTuber. Once again, Nijisanji had become the center of controversy, and once more, it seemed tied to their tendency to overlook red flags in their talent scouting. But then came the real big question. If this was a private call, who had leaked it? The call took place between friends, or at least people she thought were friends, and now suddenly the most damaging parts of that conversation were uploaded by random YouTube accounts for the world to hear. Some fans floated the idea that this was a 5D chess move by Twisty herself, a way to force her graduation and break free from the company she loved so much. But that theory didn't hold for long. If all she wanted was out, there was plenty of other things she could have leaked without obliterating her own reputation. This wasn't tactical, this was destructive. and it was meant to burn her down. That's when the focus of the conversation shifted to the others in the call, specifically the male voice, a fan named Drinos. He started commenting on the video itself. Responding to a comment the channel owner had left. "Hi, OP here, just wanted to clarify, the one who recorded this was not her friend. She said all of this casually after meeting them for the first time. I also learned later on that she had a hidden PayPay server for her fans that donated the most money to her, but sadly I have no proof of this, so take it how you want. Thanks." This is all just blatantly false. I'm the other voice in the call and I've been friends with both of them for around a year. Delulu even longer. Shinoa recorded this call without anyone's consent. This is an extremely out of context video to make Delulu seem like a horrible person and Shinoa an innocent bystander, when this was a private and serious conversation between friends that Shinoa is attempting to weaponize against her for malicious reasons. Maybe you shouldn't have been webcamming and sexting with groomers while Delulu did her best to support you financially and emotionally because she truly thought you were her friends, she. Then another user replied, "Out of context, your friend is literally being racist, transphobic, and classist in that call, and you're trying to brush it off like it's some kind of joke between friends? In what world is it okay to speak about people like that, mock their identity, or laugh at their race or financial situation? It doesn't matter if it was a private conversation, what she said was still violent and discriminatory. Calling it out of context is just a way to downplay what was very clearly and unambiguously said. If that's what you call friendship, then it's scary to think what you consider abuse. Recorded or not, those words don't have an excuse." And he responded again, "I can understand where you're coming from, but again, you're missing a lot of crucial context. The person referenced in the call was an ex-fan who had a long history of harassing Asian women and younger female streamers. He was sending Delulu vile messages, stalking her, and even planning to show up at her meet and greet just to mess with her. He ended up targeting Shinoa, and Delulu made it very clear that she did not approve of that and wanted to protect her friend. The call was a private conversation where she was venting about someone who had been causing her issues for over a year. She wasn't mocking entire groups, she was frustrated at this man in particular and expressed it in a joking way in private. It is a huge difference. No one is brushing anything off, but let's be honest, taking venting from a private call completely out of context and labeling it as public violence or abuse is a massive reach. She does not speak like this publicly and has never once promoted hateful views. If anything, she is just deeply protective of her community and friends. It's disappointing to see people weaponize partial clips without considering who was being discussed or why. Context doesn't excuse everything, and I understand not agreeing with what was said, but I do think it's impossible to comprehend those words without being there to understand the whole situation. And each time Drinos responded, he implied that the third person in the call, Cutest Shinoa, was the one behind the leak. Shinoa was the indie VTuber Twisty had referred to as wife in previous leaks. They seemed close, even financially entangled. It was revealed that Twisty had been supporting her and the two had plans to debut together. If Cutest Shinoa was behind the leaks, they must have had a major falling out with Twisty for this to happen. All in all, people were back to square one when trying to figure out who was really behind it, and most importantly, why. Was it possible that someone else had been in the call? Someone else with access? Someone who stayed quiet? That's what made these leaks even more unsettling, along with the horrendous choice of words and slurs being used in there. The audio was indeed real, but the source? Unknown. Audiences were left with more questions than answers. But one thing was certain, the backlash that followed was unrelenting. After the call leak, Twisty reacted quickly, and in a swift attempt at damage control, she released a written apology later that same day. This is something I've been reflecting on long before today. I know not everyone will agree with my decision to post this, but I feel like my fans and the people hurt by my words deserve clarity and an apology. A recording of me from almost a year ago was leaked, and I want to address that to the best of my ability today. What I said was hateful, cruel, and insanely inappropriate, racist, transphobic, and honestly, just straight up mean. I don't want to try to make excuses, regardless of what I was angry about or dealing with. Those words were wrong and I want to fully own up to it. That conversation came from a place of protectiveness and frustration over how someone close to me was being treated. But regardless, that doesn't excuse the language I used, and I'm sorry that my anger boiled over into something so ugly and so hurtful to many. To me, words were always just words. There was never any deeper meaning to anything. I felt that if you had the ability to speak, why not say whatever you want? I never really questioned the thoughts nor beliefs I grew up with until very recently. I've luckily been able to meet some kind-hearted and wonderful people that pushed, supported, and urged me to become better and grow as a person. I started to realize how much power words carry. They're able to hurt people, inflict and reinforce harm, and even make people feel unsafe, even if I didn't mean it that way. I feel that over these past few months I have come to understand that being careless doesn't mean my actions are not harmful. To me, growth is about unlearning things, listening and actually thinking before I speak, and learning how to take responsibility for my actions. After gaining these new friends who were able to correct and educate me of all the things I had done wrong, I realized that words are not just words, and they can hold meaning that are able to affect the lives of others. I've had a lot of time to reflect on how I speak and how I treat people, and I fully intend to be better. As someone who lives in America, even just in 2025 alone, I have witnessed many injustice towards marginalized communities, things that I cannot unsee or ignore. Growing up, I was surrounded by certain attitudes and beliefs that I never questioned. I took them as normal, even though they were rooted in ignorance and bias. When my mom found out I didn't vote for the hateful and oppressive president she supported, she nearly disowned me. That moment really shook me because it made me realize how much of my identity had been shaped by trying to meet other people's expectation or avoid conflict. It was the first time I truly stood my ground on something I believed in, even when it cost me. That experience pushed me to start thinking for myself more critically, to ask why I believed what I believed, and to recognize how easy it is to stay complicit in a harmful system when you're just going along with what you've always been taught. But I feel that this past year had been a turning point. With the help of friends who have educated me and shared their experience, I've started to really understand just how much harm those old ways of thinking can cause. I've made the choice to turn away from what I was raised on and to actively unlearn all of that harmful rhetoric. Maybe it's dumb to say because this conversation happened not that long ago, but even in a small period since the incident occurred, I do think I have started to grow more as a person. I want to be absolutely 100% clear on this. Despite of all the awful things I said, I've never truly held those views, and to this day I still do not. The words I used were ignorant and deeply hateful, but I do not believe they represent my actual beliefs or values. Racist, transphobic, violent, or otherwise any type of dehumanizing language has no place in the community I would like to create. Even in moments of frustration or anger or anything, saying those things was unacceptable, and I am deeply ashamed of myself. I know a lot of people see me as, quote, based, and I want to put their views and feelings into me, but that is not the type of person I am. I'm just a girl who wants to stream and have fun with her friends and fans, thinking about cute seals and cute girls. I've never and will never promote that type of behavior to my fans, and I regret setting a bad example for them. I also want to clarify a few things. I do not hate my fans. What I said was in a moment of burnout and bitterness aimed at the people who spam me for specific content while not respecting or giving value to me as a person. I let that frustration turn into a generalization, and that's my responsibility. It doesn't make those words okay, and I'm deeply sorry to everyone I hurt by saying them. I have nothing but respect and admiration for artists. I never wanted to demean anyone's work. In the whole conversation that was omitted from the clip, I was talking about how much I wish I could have a different model proportions such as those this artist draws so beautifully. I really have a lot of love and respect for their work, and I have always been extremely vocal about this. I am unable to fully clarify the content of my original statement there, but I want to reiterate that it had absolutely nothing to do with the beyond wonderful art. So Twisty had acknowledged what was said. She confirmed it was her. She said she was sorry, not just to the people she hurt, but to her fans as well. It wasn't defensive, it wasn't framed as a misunderstanding. It was a direct public admission. I said those things, I was wrong, and I'm trying to change. And it seems only time will tell if she truly meant it. However, a lot of people didn't receive her apology well. Twisty had already positioned herself against much of the Nijisanji fanbase. First as the whistleblower on the Aster Acadia situation, but over time her public behavior had started to draw criticism even before the leaks. During a collab stream with Vanta, she made inappropriate jokes leading to backlash from Nijisanji fans, enough so that Vanta himself had to ask them to stop. Then, not long after she debuted with the agency, she did an ASMR stream where she appeared to be mocking Doki Bird, saying things like,
So everybody in this company is evil and abusive, and yeah, I'm being harassed.
These moments didn't go unnoticed, so when the leak happened and she was heard roasting the trans community, mocking Indians, insulting her fans, and saying she hated men, she wasn't just going after individuals, she was taking aim at entire communities and over half the population. The internet erupted in discussion. Was her apology genuine? Was she venting from frustration and isolation? Or was she only sorry because she got caught? But perhaps the most disappointing fallout from all of this was that the credibility of her earlier claims started to unravel. Specifically, the accusation she had made against Aster Acadia back in December. Because now that Twisty no longer looked like the perfect victim, people were questioning everything she had said before. So people began to wonder, what will happen next? Will the company say something? Would they punish anyone? Would they make her graduate? But instead, we got even more silence until the stream that changed everything. Surprisingly, it wasn't Any Color who responded. It was Twisty. She escalated things once again by releasing a video titled A Sincere Apology and My Truth. The presentation was simple, but strangely familiar. A black screen and her soft-spoken voice contrasting with each other. Yes, you heard that right. This was now the second black screen stream to shake the foundation of Nijisanji since Silengate in 2024. The video starts off like a standard apology. Twisty opens up by saying it's been a while, explains the stream is partially scripted to stay on track, and makes it clear she's not trying to attack anyone or justify her actions, just share her side of the story. She apologizes directly, saying she's genuinely sorry and admits she understands why people would doubt her. She talks about her commitment to personal growth, stressing that it's something she's serious about and not going to walk it back. Much of what she says echoes her earlier tweet, that she used to believe words are just words, but her perspective had changed. She now recognizes how much words can actually hurt, and she ends this section by expressing deep regret and vows never to say those things again. But then things shifted. What started as an apology turned into an expose, and she opened with something so bizarre, so utterly random that it threw everybody off. She admitted that she doesn't like yaoi, or anime men in general. I'm kind of joking, but she actually said that. And as a fan of many anime men, personally offends me. But what came after was far worse than disliking yaoi. Not that's a very high bar. From there, Twisty started describing her experience in the company, and though she never once said Nijisanji directly, the implications were loud and clear. She peeled back the layers one by one, detailing what it was really like behind the scenes, from management struggles to internal miscommunication to the emotional toll it took. Twisty didn't hold back. She said
I received very little of the support I was promised.
And stresses that this was based on her own personal experience with the company, and that other livers may have had more positive ones.
The entire environment was it was filled with constant, ongoing delays, and a lot of the communication was very unclear and lacking. And I feel that overall, it was just a very toxic and uncomfortable work culture.
She said that she was also instructed to delete her social media and quit her previous job to go all in.
When I joined, we were asked to delete all personal and professional social media accounts and to step away from any existing jobs, IRL or otherwise, to commit fully to this new opportunity. And
then, nothing. Months of it. Twisty revealed that due to delays following her onboarding, she went 8 full months without any consistent income. That's 8 months waiting, uncertain, and in limbo. And here's where things get even more complicated. Her generation was slated to debut shortly after the sudden and very controversial termination of Selentatsky, one of the most high-profile exits in the company's history. Now, Twisty didn't confirm this directly, but the timing raises eyebrows. Many speculate that the company intentionally delayed the new gen's debut, not because they weren't ready, but to let the controversy cool down. From a PR perspective, it makes sense. Launching a new wave while fans were still reeling from Selen's firing would have been a disaster. But for Twisty, that delay didn't just mean waiting, it meant months without pay, without direction, and without knowing when or if things would finally begin. And when her first paycheck finally arrived, nearly all of it was eaten up by required work-related expenses.
I went nearly 8 months without steady income. The majority of my first paycheck was used to cover required work-related expenses.
and the only way she could get a response from staff.
I think another thing, many people have asked why I post publicly so often, and honestly, it's because it was the only way I ever received any form of response from my job.
That's not a functioning workplace. That's ghosting with a contract. These statements from Twisty echoed what others had already said about their time with Nijisanji. Take Sayu, a VTuber and voice actor. In a livestream, he described how he was pressured to give up not just his VTubing activities, but even his voice acting career, the very thing that got him into the industry in the first place.
With Niji, they told me I could not do voiceover at all. And I was like, no. And they were like, is that non-negotiable? I was like, hey, I would love to work with you guys, but yeah, that's non-negotiable.
Imagine being told to give up your dream job just to keep a contract. And if we go even further back, we see the same story play out with Zion Lenza. In her post-termination response, she detailed how Nijisanji promised support, freedom, and resources, but gave her the exact opposite. She wrote about it in her now infamous document, One Girl's Story. One part of Zion Lenza's document focuses on her interview process and how she says the company withheld crucial information. She claims they never told her she'd have to give up her personal accounts permanently, and that they overpromised and underdelivered on what she'd actually get once she joined. Here's what she wrote in her own words. Things like being unable to use my current social media or streaming accounts forever versus simply for a short amount of time, being unable to use any current game accounts or allowing certain ones, etc. None of that was included. It was a simple interview. What was interesting came at the very end though. I had mentioned that I previously had a job at a tech company. One of the interviewers, who hadn't said a single thing until then, asked me in Japanese how much I used to make as an independent streamer. I told him how much from subscription, sponsorship, etc. and he responded, Then immediately following that, he asked how much I used to make at my tech job. I answered that I actually made less than I currently did as a streamer. He gave me the same and then said he had no further questions. I thought, well, if they're gonna ask questions like that, then I'll ask one that I wasn't sure if I could ask. And I asked, do you guys have a monthly salary or minimum per month that you pay to your talents? That interviewer answered, no, but I can tell you that if you sign under us, that you'll make more than you're making right now. I'll never forget that, but at the time, the compensation structure was not discussed. And later on, she reiterates, again, nothing regarding how they ran the company or what they expected me to give up was mentioned. She was also encouraged to put all of her eggs in the Nijisanji basket, to go all in. And then what happened? Around the end of October, she wrote, is when we were finally able to start planning for our debuts. I had experience debuting as a VTuber for my own activities, so I was familiar with all the elements needed and how to manage planning with all the different people I'd work with. Regarding the question of what was needed for the debut and subsequent streaming activities, the managers informed that nothing is really required. It's up to you how much or how little you want to have for it. I personally incurred the cost of planning a successful debut. Our lore was written by ourselves. I had to find people who had the skill set needed for the graphics and animation myself and pay for them myself. By the time we debuted, I was already hugely in the red in order to plan and execute a debut befitting of a talent of such a big company. You heard that right. By the time she debuted, she was also already in debt. Just like Twisty, who allegedly owed over $10,000 by the time she debuted, and still hadn't seen a steady paycheck for months. They both started at zero, actually less than zero. And what makes this worse is that by this point, many lifers had already been asked to delete past accounts, cut off income streams, and give up any chance to sustain themselves outside of Nijisanji. So now they're debuting in debt, with no safety net, no freedom, and a company that tells them, don't worry, we'll help. But that help rarely comes. Even Doki Bird, formerly known as Selentatsuki during her time at Nijisanji, revealed after her departure that she made zero profit in her final year working with the company, after having to spend $200,000 on her work-related projects. And keep in mind, she was one of the most successful hires of her entire wave. If someone at that level was walking away empty-handed, it makes you wonder how the rest were treated. So, a content creator spends hundreds of thousands of dollars for a company that can't even give them a stable platform, a response, or a proper statement? Taken together, these past experiences set the stage for understanding what Twisty went through next. At this stage, Twisty's testimony turned darker. She began describing a male coworker, never naming him directly, but at this point everyone knew exactly who she meant: Aster Acadia. She starts by explaining that in July 2024 she raised concerns about inappropriate behavior and misconduct within the company. She alleges that
The individual in question had a known history of manipulation and targeting new hires, especially women. Despite this, I was told that no action would be taken due to fear of retaliation. These issues were not new. They had even been brought up long before I had joined, but no meaningful steps were ever taken to address them.
And this took a serious toll on Twisty's mental health. She described feeling so overwhelmed that she could no longer function like she used to, withdrawing from multiple projects, and in some case, even breaking down in tears right after going live, forcing her to cancel stream at the last minute. She felt like the entire time no one believed her and she was forced to stay quiet. She was even told, and I quote, not to speak about this with anyone, not with her coworkers, no one, just to never speak of it or mention it again. To make things worse, she claims that Aster would constantly put her down during this time, adding to the emotional strain she was already under.
Constantly just putting me down, calling me weird.
He even lied to her, claiming that others were uncomfortable around her. Twisty details how this hurt at the time, but she later found out that this wasn't true at all after checking with another coworker. But what's even more worrisome is what the coworker added next.
I later found out from another coworker that this wasn't true, and that manipulation and bullying were just a pattern of his.
So, if it was a pattern, and others were also aware, why was nothing being done about it? As he got more comfortable with her, his behavior escalated. Aster began demanding more and more of her time, acting overly familiar even when it wasn't welcome. He started wanting to call her more often, and he started making extremely flirty comments about her appearance and voice.
They began calling me more often, making extremely flirty comments about my appearance, and my voice.
He would even ask her to say specific phrases so that he could hear it in her voice.
They would often ask me to say specific things or quotes or phrases for them so that they could hear it in my voice.
Ugh, the physical cringe I'm experiencing right now is undescribable.
They would bring up my ASMR in a way that made me feel extremely uncomfortable.
And despite that closeness, he would often put her down, creating a confusing and emotionally draining environment. After she declined to meet him in person, citing her agoraphobia, he dismissed her boundaries entirely, saying,
Instead of respecting the boundary that I had set, they kept pushing, saying that I didn't really seem like that type of person to him. He would continue with things like, what if we were in Japan together? To which I stated, regardless of who was with me, I would still feel extremely uncomfortable. They then said, what if I was in Japan with you and I held your hand? And, I told them, that wouldn't change how I felt, and they followed up with, what if I hugged you? I repeated that I still wouldn't feel comfortable then, and what I interpreted to be a very flirty tone, they had said, what if we just stay in my hotel room together all day?
That is full-on inappropriate and seriously unprofessional. She even describes a moment when he tried to lure her to Japan by falsely claiming the company was short-staffed for an event and they really needed her to come.
I was invited to Japan under the pretense that they had not many people for their event and they really needed me. I later found out that this was completely false. They had more than enough people for the event, and I feel like they were just trying to guilt trip me to try to get me to show up, and thinking about it, I don't think I'm a very smart person. I felt uncomfortable, but I wanted to think the best, and, you know, if I was financially able, I probably would have went because I want to be a good coworker. I want to be a good friend, and thinking about, like, what could have happened. It's honestly something I don't really want to think about, but I do a lot.
Insane. And the worst part, it allegedly wasn't just her. She claims he made the same offer to other people as well.
The same exact behavior, the same offer to fly other people out to Japan if it meant that they would stay in the same hotel room with them also happened.
And from the way Twisty describes these events, it seems Aster extended that same unsettling invitation, not just to her, not just to one other person, but to a third victim as well.
And with another person, they got extremely aggressive with this person for not wanting to meet up with them on a trip.
But here's when things went from messy to absolutely crazy. Twisty didn't just fire back with vague accusations or vague claims like we usually see in situations like this. She came with receipts, actual proof in the form of a recorded call between her and Aster. Yes, Twisty had been recording him. In it, she directly confronts him about allegedly asking one of her friends to fly them out. And the wildest part, the clip includes what sounds like a full-on admission that he did say that.
I feel like it's kind of weird when you offer to fly girls out. Just in general. I'm getting a call.
In general?
Might be famous. I don't know, but don't you think
But it was like a half joke.
I mean, you can't really half joke saying, I'm gonna fly you to Japan, come stay in my hotel. That's not really a joke. Like, I feel like there are some things you should and should not say to someone who is like, because like, she is a really big fan of Nijisanji. You're on your Liver account. I feel like it's very awkward for her when you're saying, like, even if it's a joke, which I don't think it is. I don't think, like, you say my joke's like unhinged or whatever, but you don't just say, I'm gonna fly you out and you can stay in my hotel room.
After we had this specific conversation, we continued to go back and forth on it for a bit, and at one point, they had said something to the effect of, well, your friend is just so nice, and I really couldn't help myself, you know.
And his excuse, she was just so nice I couldn't help myself, that is such a crazy thing to say, especially when you're being confronted about crossing a major line. And even if it was a joke like he claimed it was, who was the joke for? Who's the audience? Who's supposed to laugh at that? It shifts the blame back onto the victim, like her kindness somehow gave him permission. That's not an excuse. That's a red flag. And these allegations against Aster or about management's failure to act on them didn't start with Twisty, by the way. In May 2024, a VTuber named Raziel Warmonic, a former friend and mod of Luca Kaneshiro, who's also part of Nijisanji, came forward with her own document. And while the situation between her and Luca is its own rabbit hole, and yes, deeply messy on both sides, there was one part of her document that stood out, because it echoed exactly what Twisty would go on to say months later. She writes, I can confirm that Luca said that multiple girls were coming to him about the issue since management wouldn't do anything. And he discussed it with both Elira and I. I personally told him to gather as much evidence as possible and bring it to management since it shouldn't be their, Luca's and Elira's, job to regulate this issue. To my understanding, nothing was done about it. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? And it gets more damning. Another Nijisanji liver, she writes, confirmed by DM the Aster allegations after this had been made public. So someone within the company was confirming what Twisty said, before she said it. And here's another thing. Back in December, during the first wave of backlash following the SA claims, another former Nijisanji liver stepped forward, Quinn Bennett, formerly known as Kiyokaneko. Without naming names, he tweeted, "All I'm saying is there a reason the podcast only lasted 2 episodes." And what he was referring to was a podcast called Moon Bros with the livers Renzoto, Kiyokaneko, and of course, Aster Acadia. Fans immediately connected the dots. He was talking about Aster, of course, and it wasn't just a vague subtweet. He followed up during a livestream expanding on his concerns about Aster's behavior, explaining how he had had personal issues with him, having been in the very tragic situation of being groomed when he was younger, and seeing the way Aster was communicating in False ID's video triggered him because it reminded him of the way he was spoken to in certain contexts and manipulated. And then he goes on to speak about his own personal experience and what he's heard from his friend at Nijisanji.
And I'll be completely honest, since I feel it's not right to hide this aspect of the puzzle piece. I really don't want to talk about this because if I don't talk about it, I'm seen as protecting a predator. If I do, I'm seen as being messy. So to be honest, I'm going to be as vague as possible. But another reason I didn't like this person is because there were some stories going around and some things I saw where they behaved weird towards women. Okay. Someone that was very bad at interacting with women or didn't know an appropriate way to do it at an appropriate time, do it. And I didn't fuck with that, so I distanced myself from this person when we still work together, and that's why I ended up stopping the podcast that I tweeted about.
In that stream, he also adds, "They seem kind of like they would nag certain women about certain things, or kind of put them in positions to feel guilty, or pounce on newer members that didn't know about this behavior. They were not the most healthy when they interacted with women." And again, that's almost verbatim what Twisty would go on to say months later.
The individual in question had a known history of manipulation and targeting new hires, especially women.
And when Quinn mentioned Aster nagging certain women, a lot of people immediately remembered one specific incident, the leaked DMs between Aster and Scarly Yonaguni. These messages, while personal, quickly circulated in the fandom and earned him the infamous nickname of Aster Lesai. In the exchange, Aster is clearly frustrated. He repeatedly says he feels ignored, emotionally dismissed, and not prioritized in the group. Scarly in return apologizes over and over, explaining that she's overwhelmed, forgetful, and just doesn't always know how to respond in the moment. But instead of de-escalating, Aster pushes harder. His tone's sharp, he starts accusing Scarly of intentionally ignoring him, of being dismissive, of making him feel erased, and when she doesn't reply, he continues sending message after message after message. It stops being a conversation and turns into a pressure cooker. What started as venting morphed into guilt tripping, and whether or not Aster meant to be emotionally manipulative, the effect is still the same. And when you line up next to Quinn's comments, Twisty's allegations, and now Scarly's leaked messages, it no longer looks like one-person bias. It starts to look like a consistent, troubling pattern. But just when people thought it couldn't get any worse, Twisty dropped another bombshell. In her stream, she alleges that a fellow coworker leaked her brand new outfit model just 10 minutes after she had privately shared it.
On top of this, another coworker had leaked my outfit just 10 minutes after I had privately shared it.
But that's not all.
I was really excited to be able to reveal to my fans and community, but they also added a lot of very mean and what I believe were manipulative comments to stir up drama and attempt to implicate me.
Twisty didn't name anyone, but the fandom had theories, and they were loud. Many believed the leaker was Rima Indu, and the circumstantial evidence only fueled speculations. Remember how I previously said that Twisty's outfit had been leaked on 4chan? Well, a few weeks later, Twisty vague tweeted, "Maybe it makes me a mean person, but it hurts me to see others celebrating and revealing surprises when they were the one who ruined that opportunity for me." She tweeted that on June 8th, exactly one day after Remu had announced her own outfit reveal. Coincidence? Maybe, but fans weren't convinced. Especially when, on the same day that Twisty's very controversial recording leaked, Remu's past life account tweeted, "Damn, well anyways, it was short, it was cryptic, it had a lot of attitude, and it was posted within hours of the leak making the rounds." And then came one final layer of salt. Twisty's stream. The black screen, the apology, the entire emotional bombshell was scheduled at the exact same time as Reimu's outfit debut stream, down to the hour, almost perfectly overlapping. Intentional or not, it sent a message, and it deepened the divide in the fanbase. But while people were busy debating the social fallout, Twisty dropped what may be the most damning part of her entire stream. Not about a coworker, not about Aster and his harassment, but about the company itself. She says that when she reported the harassment, she was told directly that no action would be taken due to fear of retaliation. And not only that, she was also explicitly instructed not to speak about this. However, she also explicitly states that
their behavior has been reported to staff so many times over the years, and it has been well documented and recognized as an issue.
And yet again, nothing was done. So with their backs against the wall, Twisty says she and several other coworkers eventually banded together, pleading with management to take the situation seriously. They warned that with proper intervention, the consequences wouldn't just fall on one person, it would affect everyone in the company. But still, nothing changed.
Together with some of my coworkers, I pleaded for the situation to be taken seriously. We emphasized that without proper intervention, the consequences would fall on everyone. But still, nothing had changed.
She goes on to describe how back in 2024, staff was made aware that private conversations had been leaked online. The talents urged management to respond, or at least prepare for the inevitable backlash. But weeks went by, nearly a month passed with no communication and no action. Silence. That is until the false ID video dropped, putting the situation front and center. The public backlash forced the issue out in the open. It was only then that Twisty was instructed to step back from her duties following the announcement of an internal investigation. But the part that truly stunned people was what she said next.
But to this day, I'm not confident any real investigation ever took place.
Now think about that. She was the main whistleblower, the one who originally came forward with the harassment claims. If a legitimate third-party investigation had actually been conducted, she would have known, because she likely would have been at the center of it. She would have been questioned, documented, involved, and yet she wasn't even confident one had happened at all. So what had they been doing this entire 6 months? All she describes is a single call, one where she spent most of the time explaining basic VTuber culture and not even given time to give a full detailed account of her experience.
I would say 80% of it, I was explaining VTuber culture and kind of what VTubers were. And for the other 20%, I explained my experience with this person. And I felt like I didn't have very much time to really delve into everything, and I was told that they would follow up and we'd speak more, and that never happened.
And what was the focus of most of the conversations she had with staff during all of this? It wasn't about stopping the harassment. According to Twisty, the majority of those talks were centered around managing her exit, not fixing the problem.
I never once felt that my concerns were ever meaningfully addressed. Most conversations focused not on resolving the matter, but on managing my exit.
Which raises the big question. If Twisty didn't even know whether an investigation had taken place, did one ever really happen? And just when you think it couldn't get more blatant, Twisty says the company offered her a financial settlement.
At one point, there were talks of a settlement, and I personally do not believe that if they truly did nothing wrong, that would have been something that they even considered. But ultimately, it's something that I had decided against.
Not justice, not accountability, not support, but money. And more precisely, hush money. after being told no action would be taken, after being explicitly instructed to stay silent, they allegedly offered her a payout. And for what? Not to make things right, but to end it quietly. That's not something you do when you're confident in your actions. That's not what an innocent company does when defending an innocent employee. It's what a company does when they're trying to make a problem disappear. A settlement is a signal, a corporate admission that something did happen. They just don't want it brought to light. It wasn't about resolution. It wasn't about risk management. Don't fight, don't speak, just go. But Twisty wasn't letting go. And yet, after everything, while people were still dissecting Twisty's black screen, trying to piece together what it all meant, the very next day, Twisty returned. Not with another video, but with a comment, posted under her own stream. And what she wrote might be her rawest, most unfiltered messages yet. Pinned to the top of the stream, she claims she has the receipts, the Discord logs, messages with staff, legal, but says she won't share them to protect people not ready to come forward. She doubles down on not regretting her words, says the apology wasn't about forgiveness, but just accountability. If I didn't regret my words, I just wouldn't apologize for them. I think a lot of people have the wrong idea about things and just automatically assume that apologizing is lost on a lot of people. And honestly, I agree. Forgiveness can be lost on people. No one should even be expected to forgive someone for anything in the first place. If you're apologizing to please people, is there any point? I think that I went too far and could have expressed myself in different ways, and that is all there is to it. But honestly, it has nothing to do with forgiveness from the types of people who will vilify and harass me, all while defending a genuine predator. This has always been a guilty until proven guilty situation, and it would probably stay that way forever. I truly hope it does, because I do not want such people to ever interact with me or my content. And don't begin to assume you know anything about my job, contract, or terms when you have absolutely no idea outside of, oh well, this person said this. Like I said in the video, everyone has different experience and lots of people have different circumstances too. I am telling you mine. I wanted to leave last August, and I wanted to leave again 4 months ago. That line hits differently once you realize that she debuted in May. And by August, just 3 months later, she was already trying to leave. Whatever she experienced behind the scenes, it pushed her to the edge that fast. And then came the spiral. I don't hate all men. I think they're all mentally ill. But so are all women. And so am I. She admits to being petty and jealous when she was speaking about that Brave Group VTuber. I have no issues with Brave Group as a whole. I will not mention the VTuber in question, but I still stand by my words here. Yes, I was jealous and petty, and it was definitely in bad taste, but I'm not going to apologize for disliking someone in private or being upset for my own personal reasons, nor for thinking that hiring people who are open about politics is bad optics. At this point, she's already terminated, so it'd be an apology to the wind. On this matter, netizens speculated the VTuber reference here may have been the previously terminated Globy VTuber Squirmimi. But Twisty's rant carries on. She then accuses people of deflecting, of missing the point, and insists that the issue isn't innocence or guilt, it's how the company handled the whole thing. She writes, "Two people can make mistakes at the same time. I want to start fresh and move on with my life. I'd like to take some time away, and that is not something I felt like I could do without getting everything off my chest. I think that these things were very important to address together because of all of the comments I've seen going, well, she said this, so they're totally innocent, which is just not how things work. I feel like my statement on Twitter covered the majority of my feelings about the situation, and while considered speaking more of what happened, I think it's ultimately not relevant. I cannot go back and change the past. The most I can do is say sorry and be better for myself and my fans." And then she closes with, "I will never apologize for being a lolicon. I will continue to do incestuous lolly roleplay." Okay. And finally, she ends her message with a pointed remark aimed at her haters, her doubters, and the Nijisanji fans who would defend Aster and the company even if a legitimate crime happened right in front of their eyes. "I truly believe that if you continue to support and defend my job and the individual mentioned, you're no better than me. You can deflect and call me a liar all you want while downplaying the severity of the situation, but at the end of the day, I know what I and others have experienced. You are the reason that they continue to treat their employees poorly, the reason they allow truly vile people to do truly vile things with no repercussions, and will continue to do so. Believe all women until it's one I don't like, right? I truly hope that you never will have to go through the same. And then she kept going. Even in the replies, Twisty wasn't done. She made it clear she wasn't going to silence anyone. I have not and will not be removing any comments. I disagree with a lot of things that are said on both sides, but in this situation, people should be free to express their opinions. She emphasizes that the comments will stay up, even if they're against her, in the name of transparency. In another reply, she stands firm on why she apologized. No one owes me forgiveness. I apologize because I truly feel sorry and regret my past actions and want to be better, not so that people can forgive me. And she pushes back against what she sees as false accusations. I have never tweeted or retweeted hate speech. There are so many comments spreading lies and slander as the objective truth. And in what might be her most offensive and most philosophical statement, she writes, I do not believe freedom of expression should be something we gatekeep based on popularity, morality, or comfort. Silencing opposing voices will never make them disappear. It only ensures that they will never question their thoughts or work toward change. And then she ends with a quote, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. All in all, I think she's right. I believe two things can be true at the same time. Twisty did say horrible things, but she could have also been the victim of sexual harassment, corporate cover-up, and workplace abuse. And what really gives strength to her testimony is the pattern. We've seen this kind of behavior from Nijisanji before, livers being mistreated, silenced, and pushed out, and no accountability from the top. And what's even more baffling is how quickly they moved on Zion Lenza, fired for offensive remarks regarding sexual assault. On a joke she didn't even finish, mind you, she caught herself mid-sentence.
Man, no wonder she got,
Back then, they had acted fast, clear, decisive, like they were trying to stop another controversy from starting. But now, with Aster Acadia, they've done nothing. It's like they just don't care anymore. He's still in the company, still supported. Heck, he's even been seen playing League of Legends with other Nijisanji livers just 3 weeks ago. He was in a game with Elira, Uki, and even Nayuta Umbridge, another big JP liver. So what is going on? Is this all just a calculated move to avoid bad press? Is keeping him around less risky than dealing with the fallout? But then, a few days later, users started to notice something. First, they entirely wiped Twisty's content from her channel. Then, they privated her Twitter account. And finally, she was completely removed from the official roster on their website. Naturally, everyone expected a termination announcement to follow, so we waited day after day after day with nothing. It felt like Nijisanji was quietly memory holding Twisty out of existence, as if she was never there. And then, more than 4 days later, it finally dropped. Nijisanji officially terminated Twisty. And their public reason? Violation of contract due to discriminatory speech. Really? No mention of an NDA breach whatsoever? Nothing about leaking internal grievances? That's odd. And to be clear, her comments were wrong. That's not up for debate. But let's not pretend that's the full story. These recordings were leaked by a third party, not by her. And they just so happened to give the company the perfect out. No mention of Aster, no mention of the investigation, no real accountability. It's hard not to see this as strategic. They waited, and once they had a PR-safe excuse, they pulled the trigger. And I mean, let's be honest, it's not like others in the company haven't made discriminatory remarks themselves. Take Uki Violetta, for example.
Surprise, white man does the bare minimum. Like in the movies and stuff, when white people kiss, it's like they look like they're in pain. It looks like they don't want to do it.
Like fishes going on to each other and just sucking their faces.
Not even fishes. It's like it's worse than fishes.
Oh,
it's because the hosts are two white people. You're just walking around and then this old white couple passes by you and they're like, hello, whatever. And I'm like, hello, can I help you? We don't know each other. Why did you say hello? Why are you smiling at me? Why are you talking to me? What business do you have with me? And you know, by the time I'm thinking all these thoughts, they've already moved on and walked down the street and kept minding their business. But you know, you can't always. I grew up always having to be on alert, okay? I mean, I'm still on alert when I go outside.
Here we have a liver openly making discriminatory remarks about white people on a corporate account, no less. That's also a breach of contract. But Uki, he's still active, he's still supported, and there's been no action taken. Meanwhile, Twisty gets terminated because someone leaked a private conversation she didn't consent to sharing. Make it make sense. This wasn't about fairness. It was about getting rid of someone who had become a problem, without having to bring up the investigation or the sexual harassment claims. And some users even pointed out the announcement went live on a weekend, a common PR move to minimize stock market disruption by corporations. Markets were closed, investors had time to digest, and by Monday, the company could shape the narrative before trading resumed. It all seemed too convenient. And what about the investigation? The one we were told would happen? The one Twisty, the main whistleblower, says she doesn't even think took place? And the settlement? The alleged offer to pay her off just to keep her quiet? Was this all just a ploy to buy time, to let the heat die down while they buried the controversy under good news, new gens, new merch, and new distractions? But for those who forgot, Twisty reminded us. She pulled back the curtain and exposed the rot hiding underneath the surface of the sleeping giant. We didn't forget, and we want answers, Nijisanji. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe and check out my Patreon for exclusive perks like exclusive videos, reacts, vlogs, early access, and more. These videos take a lot of time, research, and resources to put together, so if you want to help support the channel and this kind of deep dive content, even small pledges go a long way. And if you want to stay on top of the latest VTuber development, contribute your own tips, or just share cute pet pics, coming out with us in the Discord at discord.gg/Rima. Until then, I'll see you in the next one. But what happened next was even odder. She attempted to go live using the... I don't know, I sound like I'm saying otter when I'm saying odder. I may have to use another word. It was like watching someone tear... It was like watching someone tear... Tear or tear?
Vowel sounds ear and air. To say the word tear correctly, say the T, then add the word ear. Move your lips from a smile to a pucker.
Tear. Calling it out of context is just a way to downplay what was very clearly an ambiguous... Big word incoming. Unambiguously. After the call leaked, Twisty reacted quickly and in a swift attempt at... After the call leak, Twisty reacted with the help of friends who have educated me and shared their experience. I've started to really understand just... Yes, you heard that right. This was now the second black screen stream to... Black screen stream. This was... Not that that's a very high bar. After she declined to meet him in person, citing her agoraphobia.